Rain came down in sheets, hammering the jungle canopy with a violence that blurred sound and distance. It flattened leaves, filled boots, and turned the ground into a sucking, shifting mess of mud and roots. The river had swollen beyond its banks, a black, fast, moving mass that hissed and churned just inches from where the team lay pressed against the earth. The radio crackled again, static first, then breathing. Ragged, controlled, but barely. Havoc actual. This is Havoc 3. The voice was low, tight, every word chosen carefully as if panic might spill out if he spoke too fast. We are. Combat ineffective. The sentence hung there, swallowed almost immediately by rain and gunfire, but everyone who heard it felt the weight settle in their chest. They were pinned against the river with nowhere left to move. The jungle rose thick and hostile on the opposite side, a wall of darkness hiding enemy positions they couldn't see but could feel. Rounds snapped overhead with sharp, insect-like cracks, chewing into tree trunks behind them. Wet bark exploded into splinters. Leaves shredded and fluttered down like confetti from hell. The men lay shoulder to shoulder along the muddy bank, bodies half submerged, weapons clutched tight against chests. Camouflage meant nothing now. Everything was the same dark green, brown, and black. Rain streaked down faces and pooled in helmet rims. Hands shook as magazines were swapped out, fingers numb and slick. Someone cursed quietly as a magazine slipped from his grasp and disappeared into the water. No one laughed. Another burst of fire came in, closer this time, too close. A seal's boot slid in the mud, his body pitching sideways toward the river. A teammate grabbed his harness and hauled him back just in time, both of them sinking deeper into the muck. Neither spoke. Words felt expensive now. The jungle felt alive in a way that had nothing to do with wildlife. It breathed, shifted, watched. Every rustle sounded deliberate. Every snap of a branch carried intent. Enemy movement wasn't loud or reckless. It was patient, confident, closing. Havoc Actual listened as his team leaders whispered updates over the net. Ammunition was running low. One man was bleeding badly from his thigh, the tourniquet already soaked dark. Another had taken shrapnel across the back and could barely move his right arm. There was no clean withdrawal route. No air support in this weather. No safe place to push forward. The river behind them might as well be a wall. A round struck a rock inches from someone's head, spraying chips and water. He flinched despite himself, then forced his breathing back under control. Fear wasn't loud here. It didn't scream. It crept in quietly, filling the gaps between heartbeats. Then someone asked the question no one wanted to ask. Where's the sniper attachment? The words weren't sent over the radio. They didn't need to be. They passed down the line in whispers, carried from mouth to ear like a bad omen. A pause followed. Then another voice answered, soft, almost apologetic. She didn't make it. No one challenged it. No one demanded confirmation. In this environment, assumptions were survival. The sniper had been hit earlier during movement to the river. She'd gone down hard, swallowed by water and darkness. No splash. No sound after. The jungle didn't give second chances. Hope didn't leave all at once. It drained slowly, like blood into the mud. Men stared forward, eyes fixed on nothing in particular. Jaws clenched. Breathing slowed, deliberately measured. This wasn't hero time. This wasn't the moment from recruiting videos or speeches. This was the space after hope runs out, when training takes over and emotion gets locked behind steel doors. Enemy movement crept closer, shadows shifted between tree trunks, a faint metallic clink echoed, gear brushing gear, a rifle sling striking a buckle. Someone on the far left tightened his grip and brought his weapon up, finger resting against the trigger guard. The rain kept falling, relentless, uncaring. Beneath the river's black surface, the current flowed fast and cold. It swallowed sound, it swallowed light, it hid everything. The enemy believed the water was empty. The team believed they were alone. A SEAL near the center leaned toward Havoc Actual and whispered the words no one wanted to hear, the sentence that closed every door except one: "We're done." And the jungle seemed to lean closer to listen. The words she didn't make it settled into the team like wet concrete. No one asked who saw it happen. No one asked how long ago. In the jungle, questions were luxuries and answers didn't change outcomes. The sniper attachment was gone. That was all that mattered. Rain slid down rifle receivers and dripped from suppressors. Water pooled in the crooks of elbows and soaked into body armor until it felt twice as heavy. The men stayed low, faces inches from the mud, eyes burning from rain and exhaustion. Every breath tasted like iron and wet earth. The sniper had been their long reach, their quiet insurance policy. When things went bad, she made them survivable. Now that silence felt different, Havoc Actual pressed his helmet closer to the ground, listening, not just to the radio, but to the jungle itself. Gunfire had slowed. That was worse. The enemy wasn't rushing anymore. They didn't need to. A whisper passed down the line. Ammo check. Hands moved automatically, fingers counted without looking. The numbers were bad. Too many partial magazines, too many empty pouches. One man shook his head and held up 2 fingers. Another mouthed last mag and looked away. A burst of fire cracked from the tree line, forcing everyone tighter to the bank. A round skipped off the water's surface and vanished into the darkness behind them. The river hissed, swallowing it whole. Someone flinched. Someone else squeezed his eyes shut for half a second too long. Training held them together, but morale was fraying at the edges. Every man there had been in fights before. Every man knew the sound of momentum shifting against you. This was it. The invisible line where the hunter becomes patient and the hunted runs out of space. A medic crawled down the line, hunched low, hands already stained dark. He checked the wounded SEAL with the thigh injury, tightened the tourniquet until the man hissed through clenched teeth. No morphine, none left. The medic gave him a nod instead, the silent promise that he wasn't forgotten, even if the situation said otherwise. "Stay with me," he whispered, then moved on. The jungle answered with movement. Branches bent where no wind touched them. Leaves trembled. Somewhere ahead, a shadow paused, then melted back into cover. They were being sized up, encircled. Havoc Actual brought the radio close to his mouth. Havoc 3, any movement on the north bank. Static. Then a voice, thin and strained, negative. "But they're repositioning. We can hear him." Another pause. "They know we're stuck." The river surged again, slapping against the bank, cold and relentless. It pressed against the team's backs like a reminder. There was nowhere else to go. Swimming under fire with full kit would be suicide. Staying here was just a slower version. A SEAL near the rear whispered, "If they rush, it's gonna be close." No one replied. Close was generous. Havoc Actual's eyes drifted, against his will, to the dark stretch of water beside them. Somewhere out there, the sniper had gone down, maybe dragged under by current, maybe pinned by fire and lost in the chaos. There had been no scream, no call over comms, just absence. He pushed the thought away. This wasn't a story about what might happen. This was about what was happening. Another metallic clink, louder this time, too close. Weapons came up in unison, muzzles steady despite shaking hands. Fingers slid onto triggers. Safety selectors clicked off, one by one, soft but final. This was the moment everyone recognized, the one instructors never talked about openly. The moment when you stop thinking about extraction timelines and start thinking about angles, lanes of fire, and how many seconds you can buy for the guy next to you. Someone whispered, "When it starts, don't stop." A nod passed down the line. The rain eased slightly, just enough for sound to travel clearer, breathing, footsteps in mud, a low murmur of voices not speaking English. The enemy was close enough now that shapes began to separate from darkness. Human outlines between tree trunks, rifles slung low, confident, unhurried. They believed the sniper was gone. They believed the river was empty. A seal swallowed hard and leaned toward Havoc Actual. If they hit us from the front and flank, that's it. Havoc Actual didn't answer. He didn't need to. Somewhere deep inside the team, hope finally let go, not with panic, not with tears. Just a quiet understanding that they were about to fight with whatever they had left, and accept whatever came after. And beneath the surface of the river, unseen and unheard, the current carried something the jungle hadn't accounted for yet. The jungle went quiet in the way only a jungle does before violence. Not silent, never silent, but muted, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. The rain eased to a steady whisper, soft enough now that every misplaced step, every brush of fabric against bark, carried farther than it should have. Havoc Actual felt it before he heard it. Pressure. The kind that crept in behind the eyes and settled in the chest. The kind that told him the fight was no longer theoretical. The enemy wasn't probing anymore. They were committing. A faint click echoed from the tree line. Metal against metal, a rifle sling adjusting, too casual, too close, eyes front. Someone whispered, shapes shifted in the undergrowth. At first they blended into the darkness, batches of deeper black moving against black, green shadow. Then outlines sharpened, a shoulder, a helmet, the squared silhouette of a rifle barrel angled low. The enemy moved with discipline, not charging, not hesitating. They advanced in bounds, one element covering while another slid forward. They believed time was on their side. They weren't wrong. A seal on the left eased his rifle onto a root, lining up a sight picture that danced with his breathing. He forced himself to slow it, in through the nose. Out through the mouth, the world narrowed to the front sight and the space just beyond it. The river behind them surged again, louder now, as if mocking the idea of escape. Cold water pressed against body armor and seeped into every seam. Legs cramped from holding position too long. No one shifted. Movement was an invitation. A low murmur drifted from the jungle, voices, confident, close enough now that individual tones could be distinguished. The enemy wasn't whispering anymore. They didn't think they needed to. Havoc Actual keyed the radio, then stopped. There was nothing left to say upstream. No extraction, no miracle inbound. Command knew where they were. Command knew they were pinned, that knowledge didn't change terrain or ammunition counts. The enemy flanked wider. A shadow appeared farther right, then another behind it. The team's field of fire narrowed, angles collapsing inward. Every man there understood what was happening. The jungle wasn't just surrounding them, it was shaping the kill zone. A seal near the center mouthed now. Havoc Actual shook his head once. Not yet. If they opened fire too early, the enemy would melt back into cover, reset, and come again, closer. They needed the enemy committed, close enough that the first burst would matter. The weight stretched. Rain slid down eyelashes and blurred vision. A man blinked hard and wiped his face with the back of his glove, smearing mud across his cheek. Another adjusted his grip, knuckles white. Then something moved in the water, not a splash, not a ripple, just a subtle distortion in the reflection of broken moonlight on the river's surface. It vanished almost immediately, swallowed by current. No one noticed. The enemy stepped into a faint clearing, just beyond the tree line, two of them now clearly visible, weapons low, heads turning as they scanned the bank, confident in what they believed they were about to finish. A third shape appeared behind them. The murmured voices grew louder. One laughed. That sound, soft, dismissive, hit the team harder than gunfire. It stripped away any illusion that the enemy felt threatened. This wasn't a fight to them anymore. It was cleanup. Havoc Actual's jaw tightened. His finger rested against the trigger guard, not inside it. Discipline held. Another step forward, then another. The jungle shifted again, branches parting farther left. More movement, too many angles, too little ammunition. A seal whispered, barely audible, "They're gonna rush." Havoc Actual nodded once. He leaned closer to the man beside him and murmured, "Pick your lane, make it count." The river surged again, louder than before, water slapping against submerged rocks. For a brief moment, the sound drowned everything else out. Beneath the surface, the current wrapped around gear and fabric, tugging hard, pulling downstream. Cold bit into muscle. Time slowed. On the bank, an enemy fighter raised his hand, signaling. The motion was calm, confident, final. Weapons came up across the tree line in unison. Havoc Actual inhaled. This was it. Then crack. Not the sharp bark of uncontrolled fire, not the chaotic thunder of a full engagement. One shot, precise, suppressed, close. An enemy silhouette snapped backward, dropped without a sound, as if the jungle itself had cut his strings. For half a second, no one understood what they'd just heard. The enemy froze, the team did too, and the river, black and unreadable, kept flowing as if nothing at all had changed.